the IP Open Policy meeting for the Policy Special Interest Group. In this session, we're going to shift our focus to policy update on Regional Internet Registry and National Internet Registry. The moderator for this session is Dr. Ching-Heng, Director of IP Department at TWNIC. As we are sorting out the seatings here, I would first like to introduce the moderator for the session. The moderator, Dr. Gu, is in charge of IP policy research and number resources services at TWNIC. He was the Deputy Director of the Operation Division in the Internet Protocol Upgrade and Promotion Office of National Information and Communications Initiative Committee under the Executive Yuan. He was also engaged in the IPv6 Upgrade and Promotion Program of Ministry of Transportation and Communications in Taiwan. I will now invite the moderator and the panelists to please take your seat on stage as we're going to proceed to the IP OPM for the Policy SIG. And I will now hand the floor to our moderator for the session, Dr. Gu. Dr. Gu, over to you, please.
Okay. Thanks everyone. Welcome to the Policy SIG. Policy SIG is to develop policies which are related to the management and the use of the internet number resources, and that include policies for resource allocation and transfer, for resource registration within whois RPKI and related services. We know that the IP management policies follow the transparent and bottom-up multi-stakeholder model. Today's topic of this session is the IIR and the NIR policy update. We are very glad to invite two senior and experienced speakers today. One is from IIR, is APNIC. The other is from NIR, is JPNIC. The first speaker is George Guo. He is a senior advisor of APNIC. The second speaker is Maemura Akinori. He is the Chief Policy Officer of JPNIC. George Guo is responsible for managing strategic partnership across the Asia Pacific. George also be responsible for leading the way in which APNIC gather reports and acts upon all customer feedback across the organization. George, today's speech topic is the policy development in the regional internet registry communities. So we give a big hand to welcome George Guo to have this presentation.
Thank you, Ching-Heng. Thank you for your introduction. Okay, so it's a great pleasure to be back to TWNIC IP OPM. In fact, I believe, as Paul mentioned, this is the 20th anniversary since TWNIC held its first open policy meeting back in the 3rd December 2003. So it's really an outstanding effort. So thank you very much again for inviting APNIC to take part in your Policy SIG. In the past, I have presented some of the important policy implementation and proposals from the APNIC region. This is my first attendance of ICANN-APAC TWNIC engagement forum, so I would like to share an overview of the policy development of the IIR community. So my name is George Guo, and I work for APNIC, and I also work for a global and open, stable, and secure internet. So my talk would just be focusing on the regional internet registries policy development and focus on some key elements. So under the current regional internet registry, number registries structure, we have 5 regional internet registries, and all of us have differences, but we all also have a lot in common. For example, we are all membership-based, not-for-profit, neutral organization responsible for allocating and managing internet number resources. And of course, with the work we do, we maintain a whois database, managing reverse DNS delegation. And very important, we facilitate policy discussion and implementation. And to a different extent, most of us support the development of internet infrastructure. So as you can see, there are 5 registries currently, and Aaron looks after or serves the North American Caribbean region, and we have LACNIC serving the South America. RIPEN CC looks after the European area, and APNIC, of course, the African continent. And I'd like to also briefly mention that within this region, we have 5 national internet registry, commonly known as NIRs, and they're also managing and distributing resources within their respective economies. And as you can see, TWNIC, and we also have JPNIC representative here. So as I mentioned, my focus today would just be on the regional policies. And of course, these policies are about managing and the use of these internet resources. It's quite a long-winded term, but really they refer to IPv4, IPv6, and autonomous system number, which are the critical resources, as Jarong pointed out in his morning talk, that it's one of the 3 critical resources that made up the internet that we use today. So why resource policy? Because these are the critical public resources, and the policy will provide a framework for managing them. And we wanted to make sure these resources that are given out are not overlapped. There's no duplicated numbers delegation, otherwise that will be a disaster. And the record that's kept for every delegation are correct with the valid information. And it provides the same criteria for all. Everyone follow the same thing. There's no particular favor for particular party. And wherever we can, we want to make sure that we don't waste these resources. Some may argue you have a lot of IPv6, why bother? But it doesn't mean that waste should be allowed, because the resource should really be given to those networks that have a genuine requirement. So how are policies developed in the RIR communities? And I like to look at 3 things: the process, the forum, and participation. So as you saw earlier, the RIRs, so each RIR has its bottom-up policy development process. They consist of different phases and timeline for the policy development. For the forum, those are open forum for the community to take part in the discussion of policy debate. And participation should or really has to come from the community. It is really essential and open to all interested parties that have a stake or a share in the use of these resources. So these are the key area that I like to walk through for the policy development. The process, it's open and transparent, which means all aspects of the PDP are documented and made publicly available. So whenever you need to look at what has been proposed, you have no problem of finding it. And whatever the discussion, the debate happened in the room, like a meeting, face-to-face situation, you're also able to retrieve a transcript. So that's what the open and transparent it's all about. And each of these steps, they are all clearly defined with a timeline which determined the sequence of activities. For example, what should happen before the next step. For example, the proposal will be put forward first, and then the discussion would start. And they will always have a specific timeline or time allocated for that particular activity. It just, again, this is making sure there's a fairness and very open and transparent to everyone. So I have, you might not be able to read them, but I have provided some reference that you will be able to look at, look clearly in each of the RIR's process. And so you can see they all look different, but in fact there are a lot of in common. For example, you should always see the timeline for the process and which particular is dedicated to what service. And really these are all established by each of the RIR community to produce such a process that's work for that particular region. So if you're interested, I would encourage to take a look at them. So the forum, so it's really where the discussion about policy proposal or policy change would happen. And it can happen face-to-face, like in this setting, open policy meeting. And it can also happen online in case that people cannot attend such a discussion on site, face-to-face. And there will always be a mailing list for that forum to capture all the discussion and information. And the whole process and the forum are led by the elected community members, and in the APNIC community case, they are guided and led by what we call policy chair and co-chair, and with the support of running the process provided by the RIR staff, and I will elaborate a bit more on that later. So when it comes to making a decision or deciding on what change and proposal should be accepted and eventually make into the policy, it's through the community process, which means the decisions are made by the community, and the chair's job is make sure he observes the debate and the discussion, the pros and cons, even sometimes asking whether they support or do not support the proposal and so on. And he will be judging from his observation based on the room's the interaction, the discussion and the debate, and also over on online participation and the discussion on the mailing list, putting all that together to finally decide if there will be a consensus or not for that particular proposal or change. And each of the RIRs you can see I've included there, they all have slightly different name for the forum, what should be called. But that doesn't really matter. It's just the different regions have their preference or the way of naming things. But again, in the APNIC's case, it's all Policy Special Interest Group, which is commonly known as Policy SIG, and I would elaborate a bit more on that later. So finally, the participation is a really important part as well, because without this, the process in the forum will not mean anything. So again, it's open and transparent part that anyone from the community can participate. You don't really need to be an APNIC member or any RIR's member to be qualified to join the discussion and debate. And there are many different ways to do it. Like I said, you could voice your opinion, your view, comments online in a mailing list, or you can come and stand up lined up in front of the microphone to express your view. And as the time and technology changes, policy may need to reflect these changes to keep up to date. You know, for example, a few years back when IPv4 were close to exhaustion, and communities around the world, the IR communities would come together and start discussing and putting forward changes on how we would manage these critical resources for the final time of its exhaustion. So that was kind of highlight a very good example of that. So only through the community participation that we will be able to get these policies stay updated and relevant. So the role of the RIR Secretariat in the PDP is really just to support the process, the running of the process. It is important to note that the Secretariat does not lead or make decisions on these proposals or whether we should accept it or reject it. We purely are there to provide support, to run a Zoom room, to run a meeting like this, to share, if needed, any impact analysis as a result of certain proposals, and to make sure all these discussions are captured on the mailing list and documented properly. And of course, finally, if it's accepted by the community, then the RIR Secretariat will have to implement them. So quickly, in the case of APNIC community, the forum, the open forum, it's called Policy SIG, and as you can see here, and I won't elaborate or explain in detail, I would encourage you to have a read about the timeline and the process, and if you are interested, you want to dig in a bit more, there's also a proposal template for you to use if you want to propose something. So the opportunity will be the next APNIC Conference 56, located in Kyoto, which is not too far from Taipei. And you will still have plenty of time to think about what you want to put through. And if you need any help, APNIC Secretary will be here to guide you and help you. So the conference day is actually from 7th to 14th of September. The first 4 days will be various different technical workshops, such as DNS and network security. So welcome you to join us, either online or on-site. All right, I think that's what I have to share with you, and I hope I stick with the time allocation. And I have included all the context of APNIC here. If anyone have any questions, please do feel free to get in touch. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, George. Let's give a big applause to thanks, George. We leave the question to the last. So the second speaker is Maemura Akinori. So I make a short introduce Akinori. He is the Chief Policy Officer of JPNIC. He also has served as the Board Director of ICANN, and he also served as the Board Director at the JP CERT Coordination Center. Maemura is responsible for JPNIC's Internet promotion business, covering information dissemination, communications, events, technology, and policy research, international affairs, and the oversight role of the JP-CCTLD. Among them, he is directly involved in policy research for domain names and internet governance. Maemura's career has more than 20 years experience in internet technical operations and coordinations. He was first elected in 2000 to the Executive Council of APNIC. He served as EC member for 15 years, especially as its chair for 13 years until February 2016. So we welcome Maemura Akinori have this presentation. Let's give a big applause to welcome Maemura.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ching-Heng. My name is Akinori Maemura. 7 minutes, and then I found that my slides are not held by them, and try my best. Basically, I'm here for sharing what kind of the shape the IP numbers policy discussion in Japan. It's I am quite proud of the policy process in Japan, which is a really bottom-up process. And then that means that JPNIC Secretariat is not the main force to engage and promote such kind of the policy discussion, but the community member organizing the discussion of the mailing list and the on-site meeting with a little bit of the JPNIC Secretariat's help to have the IP policy proposal discussed among the Japanese community. Then I'd like to share those who I am proud of, which is the. Do you see them? They are the four members of the steering team of the Japan Open Policy Forum. They are the main force of the IP policy discussion in Japan. That they are, the policy discussion and the policy process is almost all part of the policy development process is left to this community initiative, and then they are operating that forum, and then have the committee join the discussion, and then have some proposal come to the consensus, or sometimes not. And then if the policy proposal reached to the consensus, and then JPNIC is now take the turn to implement that. And then if we had we time to time have the APNIC policy consensus which require NIR to implement. In that case, that kind of the APNIC policy proposal being brought to the Japan Open Policy Forum, and then have that it's being discussed, and then come to the consensus, and JPNIC will implement that. Not only the providing their service to the open policy process, they sometimes reach out to any other committee like a JPNIC, Network Operators Group, and some other part of the internet community to encourage the participation to the IP policy discussion at the Japan Open Policy Forum. And then it is a little bit interesting for you that the policy forum has its own website, but the operation of that website, meaning the server hosting and then domain names provision is not paid by JPNIC, but the Open Policy Forum bear that kind of cost. So it is really committee's initiative to have the IP policy discussed to the implementation in the JPNIC. So this is basically it. It is the policy process which was employed in Japan. It is one of the example. And then another thing, the Japan Open Policy Forum periodically report the situation of the discussion of the APNIC policy proposal in APNIC Policy SIG. Then that's actually really appreciated by the APNIC policy community for them to know, be able to know that the situation in Japan. So I'm really proud of the very great performance by the Japan Open Policy Forum, and then it is for me to introduce you their very active involvement in our process. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Maemura, to introduce the Japan's IP policy forum to us. And also thanks George to talk about the IR policy development process, and the welcome of you join the APNIC meeting in September. And if you have any question on the floor, you can go to the mic. And I think it's a very good chance to know global policy, especially NIR, JPNIC's policy process procedure. TWNIC also organize the open policy meeting twice a year, and we welcome all of you join every Policy SIG in open policy meeting. And because the time limit, so if you don't have any question. Okay. So our speaker have some comment. George.
First, I just wanted to add comment. What I have presented earlier is just about the regional process for the RIR's community. And there is also a component of the RIR community, different RIR community working together discuss a global policy. So maybe if there's a chance in the future, then I'm happy to share that. So that's just a comment I want to add. But my question maybe is to Maemura-san, and I'm actually a follower of OPF forum. Unfortunately, my Japanese is not very good, so I have to do a lot of Google Translate. But I'm quite surprised that I just learned today from your talk that even the running of the website and mailing list it's contributed by those people. Are they just themselves volunteering? How do they get the funding to keep the work going for so many years, actually many years?
Support from the JPNIC Secretariat is quite limited. Just attend their meeting and then have some sort of the facilitation of the securing the meeting room or something. Further than that, everything is done by them. So really, I love that.
Okay, thank you. Very impressive. Thank you.
Yeah, yes, we know every APNIC policy at JP, OPM forum all have some discussion and give the comment to the APNIC community. It's a very wonderful.
Could I have the question to you, Ching-Heng? And first, starting with a comment. Congratulations for the 20th anniversary for the TWNIC Open Policy meeting. It is a great thing to have such an anniversary. My question is that what this 20 years differentiate your process, or what is your impressive thing throughout this 20 years history of your OPM?
Maybe you give some idea to us. Maybe we can have to think about it and maybe to have more special organized. I'm not sure. Yeah. Right. I think it's 20 years is a long time, but we continue to organize the open policy meeting in the community. So we keep in touch with our community. I think it's a very impressive thing for TWNIC. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm really happy to have have the quite active open policy meeting as we do, and then it is really the great thing for the APNIC community as a whole. So let's keep up the pace for another decade for the future.
So maybe TWNIC and the JPNIC can get together to give some policy proposal in the future.
It's an excellent idea.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks our wonderful speaker, and we thanks all of you to join this session. So we end of this session. We have time to give the moderator. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gu, for moderating the session, and thank you to all panelists. Please come to the front as we're going to have a group photo with all the panelists and the moderator. Please step forward a little bit, and please look at our photographer over there. All right, and a big smile. Thumbs up for the photo. All right, thank you very much.